African women lured to India.
The first day I went there, I looked and I saw so many girls.
Forced into sex work to satisfy the demands of African men living in New Delhi.
What you do is you sit down and then a man has to come and choose. He has to come and pick you, like the way you go to the market and pick potatoes. He has to come and say, I like this one is the one I'm going with.
But who is behind the sex trafficking network? Africa Eye goes undercover to find out. In 2018, BBC Africa Eye investigated the trend of young Kenyan women seeking male sponsors to fund their lifestyles. Grace was one of the women interviewed.
I'm Grace. I'm a singer. I'm a musician. I'm a dancer. And I'm an actress. I want to become famous and have a good life. What matters the most is my baby's future. I don't want her to go through what I went through.
My name is Nyasha Kadandara. I was the journalist who told the story of Grace, and we stayed in touch afterwards. As the series aired, Grace was still struggling to support her daughter. Then, she saw a post in a WhatsApp group offering work in India for dancers and hostesses for tourists.
So that girl posted in the group that she's looking for someone who is interested in working in India. Hearing that it's good money, I went for it. I decided, okay.
But when she arrived in New Delhi, Grace began to realize she was trapped in a nightmare. And she was sending me an increasingly desperate series of messages. I got on a plane and flew to India. I caught up with Grace in a market. She told me she had been picked up from the airport and taken straight to a brothel. This is the woman who was in charge of the house where Grace was staying. She is known as Goldie. She covered Grace's travel costs. Then she had confiscated her passport and told Grace she owed her almost $4,000, more than 7 times the actual cost of a ticket to India. And there was only one way to pay off this debt. For 5 months, Grace lived in this room with 4 other trafficked women. When we met with her, she agreed to wear a hidden camera and take us inside the brutal world of an African Indian sex trafficking ring. Men would visit the flat daily.
Very many times we'd bring clients in the house, or you go to hotels. If one of us had a client in the room, the rest of us would sleep in the couch in the sitting room and wait for the one who is at the room to finish their stuff, and then we'd go back to sleep.
Here you can see a man passing payment to one of Goldie's women. And then they leave. In the evening, the women were turned out to solicit in local pickup bars known as kitchens. The kitchens are illegal clubs set up to cater for many African men who live and work in New Delhi. They're places to dance, drink, and where men can pick up African women for sex. Grace can't forget her first night in the kitchens.
Usually the madam is the one who takes a new girl to the kitchen. But maybe I went with my sisters, and then when I was going to the washroom, someone just stopped me and asked me, how much? I told the guy, wait, let me come back. I don't understand you. I went back to my friend and asked her. He's asking me how much. What do I tell him? She told me, is it for a night or for a short? Then that's now when it hit me. This is really what you're getting yourself into. And then all of a sudden I'm like, you want to pay me 1,000? 1,000, okay, like, okay, no problem, 1,000. I have to sleep with how many men till I get to 270,000?
270,000 rupees. That was the total amount Grace had to pay Goldie before she could get her passport back. Grace showed me the book in which she recorded the slow, painful repayment of her debt to Goldie.
It's the list of how I paid my debt and the amount that I used to pay in dates. Let's say I've given 3,000 today. I write 3,000 and Goldie writes 3,000. Yeah. When I look at all these numbers, I remember the guys that I went with. I can even almost remember all of them. Just by looking at this book like this, it just reminds me of everybody.
During our investigation, we identified at least 15 kitchens across 7 neighborhoods in South Delhi where scores of African women are forced to sell their bodies. Looking back over the footage she had filmed for us, Grace identified the man who she knew as being at the heart of the sex trade in her area, Tuklakabad.
This was chairman.
His name is Eddie, and he is known as the local leader of an organization called ASCA. That rang a bell. We filmed election posters of ASCA stuck to the doors of some of the kitchens. Online and across cities in India, ASCA has a public profile as a nationwide community group offering social activities to connect and support Nigerian students studying abroad. Then we found an official circular under the banner of ASCA and endorsed, it seems, by the Nigerian High Commission. And there was Eddie, named as the task force chairman of Tuklakabad, along with his contact details. Grace agreed to help us expose Eddie. In the past, she had been asked to convince women in Kenya to come to India. Instead, Grace was warning them to stay away.
Mistaki ukuje, usikuje. Ma usikuje, don't come to India, don't. Hivyo venye unaniambia hivyo ndivyo hata mimi niliambiwa. Pia mimi niliambiwa hivyo. Na hivyo venye wewe uliambiwa unakuja kufanya dancing. Unaambiwa wangu unaenda kufanya kazi nyingine, unafika unapata unafanya umalaya, mama. Sikudanganya.
Because Grace had told some of her friends not to come to India, one of the madams lost a sex worker that was promised to her. Eddie ordered Grace to convince a new woman, or she would have to compensate the madam herself.
I want you to do something for me. From what you're telling me now, you said you have friends. And it's like you still have more. On this one, check the amount. Let her calculate the amount. It's a big loss.
Not now. You know, I've lost my contacts. That's the problem. I forgot my Facebook password. I had to start another Facebook.
You start another Facebook to search for your friends. I'm giving you the end of the month. Search for woman for years. Stop telling people India is bad. You're not their creator and you're not their destiny. That's Kenya that is hard. People are still making it there too.
And then, Eddie sweetens the offer with the suggestion that Grace can also bring someone to work for her.
Convince one for yourself, convince one for her.
This is how the network grows. Women pay off their debts as sex workers and then, now hoping to make something for themselves, start operating as madams. It's a family tree of exploitation.
There's the woman who brings you to India, who is your Indian mom. And then there's the one who brought her is your grandmother. The others that she brings along with you are your sisters. The name might seem friendly, like mom, but it's just for identification. This is someone's girl.
After almost a year in India, Grace has now finished paying her debt to Goldie, but she's got nothing to show for all of her misery. The only way to make any real money from this situation is to bring new women to India. And the one who offers to help is Eddie. Grace pretends to be interested.
I personally support everybody who to. But what I come against, what I work against is those who want to spoil the streets. You can process the girl because you're just having your first girl.
Okay.
If you have gotten a girl before, I would have seen you give this one. But since you have not gotten any girl before, I process this one. As she arrived, we source for a girl again.
Eddie is offering to help bring a woman from Kenya to New Delhi for Grace.
Okay, so what's the process of bringing a girl? You know, I don't know anything.
Bringing a girl, I don't know. Are you using agents?
I don't know. I
don't
don't
give
give
money
money
to
to
the
agents.
girl.
Oh,
You
to
give
the
money to
girl.
the
I
girl.
give to agent.
You know, as much as the person is coming to Nairobi, the agent will do the passport, even the birth certificates. They process that.
Okay.
With all this evidence gathered by Grace, we were now ready to confront the chairman.
Eddie. Hi, how are you? Good. My name is Nyasha Kadandara. I'm from BBC Africa Eye. We have evidence against you and we want to talk to you about the sex trade that you are involved in.
Sex trade?
Yes, the sex trade that you are involved in. Women are coming from Kenya to India for sex work. They're forced to work in the kitchens that you run.
I don't run kitchens. Listen to me. I am the chairman of all Africans in India. All right?
Does ASCA know what you're doing?
This is my
So you're a
idea.
proud member of ASCA, so ASCA knows that you are entrapping and exploiting women for sex
I don't
work.
do that. All right?
Are you sure?
Sure, 100%.
We have evidence against you. We have evidence of you saying that you're going to process women, that they're going to come from Kenya to India for sex
You
work.
can show me the evidence.
We do. We have it right here. This
Let me
is
see.
a right of reply for you to come and respond to BBC. We look forward to hearing your response.
All right.
Africa Eye contacted Eddie Anide 3 times. He denied trafficking any woman from Kenya to India. Madam Goldie gave no response to our allegations of trafficking and brothel keeping. The BBC also contacted the Nigerian High Commission in New Delhi, and they said their cooperation with ASCA is strictly in compliance with the Indian and Nigerian laws and does not endorse any criminal activity such as sex trafficking. When we contacted ASCA, they confirmed that Eddie Anide is their task force chairman in Tuklakabad, but that his duties are strictly as defined in the ASCA constitution, which in no way condones illegal activity. Africa Eye enabled Grace to resolve her immigration status and paid the fines for overstaying her tourist visa. So she could finally go back to her family in Kenya.